Way to go, Sergeant. Thank you for being here.
Yep. All right, Sergeant Brian Hoskin, Bryan Hoskin, Glendale Police Department Public Information Office. Thank you guys for all meeting me out here today. About 10:30 this morning, we've received a call for service in reference to a shooting here at this lot behind me at 91st Avenue and Cardinals Way. As officers responded to the scene, and as they were still coming, call comments came through that two male individuals got into a altercation of some sort, and during that altercation, one of the males pulled out a gun and ultimately shot the victim multiple times. The victim was ultimately transported to a local hospital where he's currently in critical condition. The individual who did do the shooting was compliant with officers as they arrived on scene, and everybody is accounted for and in custody. There are several witnesses. The detectives are here on scene that are here to talk to. And at this time, the only other thing that we really know is that the two males who were involved in the altercation do work for the crews, some of the crews that are working in this construction site. Does anybody have any questions specifically?
Is this a parking garage connected to the ongoing construction at Vi by chance?
I think it's a parking structure that's kind of just for the whole area, potentially for some Vi as it opens. I know from what I understand, there may be some Cardinals traffic through here at some point in the future, but nothing that I know for 100% certain at this time. I think it's still in the works.
Did the suspect raise at all at this point in the investigation any sort of self-defense claim that you all are investigating now?
Not that I'm aware of. I don't even think any detectives have actually spoken to him at this point, as they all responded here to make sure that the scene was taken care of with all the additional witnesses and crew that were around that may have seen something or heard something. So they're going to try to take care of the scene, and eventually somebody will go over there and try to speak with that individual.
So is he still on scene here in the back of the cruiser?
No, so the individual was transported to our station where he will be questioned by the detectives.
Any names of the construction company they work for?
You know what, and I didn't get that. I don't have a name for it. I couldn't tell you at this time.
Has he been read his rights? Is he charged?
No, he's just he's officially detained at this point for questioning regards to this. From what I understand from the call comments, when he called, he explained that he was the individual with the gun and the shooter in the incident. But that's still to be determined for sure once they get into an interview with them to determine maybe cause or why, maybe try to get a why and figure out why it happened.
Yeah.
So he called police after he did the shooting, is that correct?
That's what I understand. Yeah, that's what I read on the call comments.
Okay.
How rare is that?
It depends on the situation. I have seen it over my career. I've been here 20 years. I've seen it multiple times. And again, situational, it's based off each situation more or less. Sometimes, a lot of times, I think you do see that in self-defense cases of people who are claiming self-defense. But again, at this time, I don't know if that's the case in this specific call.
Do you have any?
Too soon to know if these two have had issues in the past on the job and they've worked together for a while?
Correct. Yeah, I don't think that information has come out yet. That if there was any bad blood or anything between these individuals, or how well they even knew each other, or if they even worked for the same company.
And no knowledge at this point as to what led this sort of verbal altercation that led to the violence?
I do not know. Yeah, I don't think they're quite sure.
Okay.
And then you said the suspect was shot multiple times. Can you tell us the injuries and where he might have been shot?
They didn't give me exactly where he was shot. They just were like, "Hey, look, he was shot multiple times, critical condition, obviously, and was taken to the hospital."
This is, of course, off of State Farm Stadium property. There's, of course, draft day festivities, if you will, going on there. Any knowledge to what you know at this point as to whether that's impacted at all?
I didn't hear any impact that happened to anything that may be going on at the stadium. And if they were to call and wonder, we obviously have everybody that in question here in custody or accounted for. So there's no threat level or anything for them.
Are you allowed to be armed at a construction site like this?
You know, it's Arizona. You're allowed to be armed. I know that it probably is a lot based off of company policies. There's probably a lot of companies that either allow it or don't if you're working on their job site. And obviously they can control that if you're their employee and they don't want you to carry. That's their right to refuse kind of that situation.
Talking about officer safety in a situation
Sure.
like this, is it helpful to have someone call, explain that they're the ones who fired the shots and be compliant?
Yeah, obviously we want compliance. We want to try to get to the bottom of it as soon as possible, no matter the outcome or no matter the reasoning for a situation like this, whether it was self-defense or if it was just out of anger or if it was out of confusion, whatever the case may be in a situation like this, we like to try to obviously get to the bottom sooner than later, and try to figure out what's going on. The compliance obviously is beneficial to both officers responding to the scene and the individual. So if we come across an armed individual and if they end up pointing a gun at us, we know what the outcome normally is on those situations, and that's the last thing anybody wants to be a part of.
Sergeant,
So
what
there's
should
busy streets right here on either side of this. You've got gunfire going on. Did you have any reports of any gunfire going into vehicles or outside of this construction?
Yeah, there was no report of any other casualties or damages caused by this or even any information about potential bullet strikes to anything outside of the vicinity.
what should we in the public expect this to look like for the next day or so? Any
So,
idea?
yeah, just throughout the day. Obviously, no roads are impacted in the area. It's just specifically the scene is inside the fenced area that you see behind me. Detectives will be out here probably for the remainder of today. I don't suspect they'll be out here any longer than that. It's not a huge scene by any means from what we've seen in the past. It's pretty well contained, so they'll be able to probably get to it fairly quickly.
Can you brief?
Suspect have any injuries? Was the altercation beforehand physical at all? Or
No reported injuries that I know of the individual who was the shooter at this time, but that could change.
What about other workers,
Yeah, there were several other workers in the area. There was a few workers that were there who saw and heard what took place. Obviously, nobody else was involved in the altercation from what I know at this point, and nobody else was injured or had any other type of involvement besides being a witness.
Can you briefly describe, I guess, what you guys are doing, what investigators are doing when they're at the scene? We saw some of them taking photos of, a hard hat and it looked like maybe jeans and stuff on the ground. So just kind of tell me what you guys are doing on your end
Sure.
for the investigation.
So we have multiple units out here, and obviously the detectives is kind of a given that we normally see on these types of scenes. You have the initial responding officers and the patrol officers who are helping secure the scene and keep it safe to make sure nothing else comes in or that doesn't belong, while the detectives are focusing on their work and processing evidence. Our forensics units are also out here. They will be helping with processing the scene through photographs and mapping. They'll just kind of do all that type of stuff and helping the detectives accomplish all the tasks that they have here specifically at the scene.
The 911 conversation that took place, do you know the kinds of questions the operator asked? And I imagine that'll be used as part of any potential.
Sure. Specifically, I don't know in this instance what they ask. A lot of times they try to get descriptions, as much information as they can for the officers responding, so that officers know who's who and who's what, right? They try to get the condition of the individual, potentially like in this situation, the individual who got shot and hurt. We want to get that information and as much as we can for that in their location so we can get emergency services to them, the medical services, to obviously preserve life as quickly as possible. Obviously, the officers a lot of times get to the scene first, so we also want to know that information so we can get there and try to start preserving life. We have a lot of tools in our cars and things like that that are medically purposed to try to stop bleeding or do those types of things, wrap wounds and those types of things to try to help with that life-saving measure. But that's, life-saving obviously is our biggest key, but we also have to make sure it's safe. A lot of times it's good because a lot of us show up at the same time. A lot of officers you see in these types of situations, as you can see behind me, there's a lot of people here. And there was on the initial response, and there was actually, thankfully, some detectives and officers who were close by, a motor officer who was close by as well. And it's one of those situations where different units who have different tasks around the city all come together on these types of situations and all go kind of all hands on deck to try to make sure that we can resolve the situation as quickly as possible, even though it's not their main responsibility.
Was the victim, was he armed in any way? Did he have a knife?
Not that I was told. I don't know any information. There's nothing that's been said at this point of any information that the victim may have been armed in any way.
Can you see how many times he was shot?
I don't know the exact number. I was just told several times.
just to confirm, these are not stadium workers, it's a separate construction.
Correct. Yeah. Yes. It has nothing to do with the stadium at this point.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
Appreciate it.
Thank you guys, man. Appreciate it.